Imagine having parents so strict that you decide to hire a hitman to take them out. Jennifer Pan was a young girl born in 1986 in Markham, Ontario. Her parents had fled Vietnam in 1979 and worked hard to provide for their children the opportunities that they never had. Eventually, their hard work paid off and they were able to purchase a large home, nice cars, and accumulated a hefty savings. They disciplined their daughter by enrolling her in piano lessons at the age of 4 and figure skating in elementary school. In high school, she thrived both academically and socially. However, when she tore a ligament in her knee, any hopes of being a professional skater were gone. In 8th grade, Pan started self-harming. In 11th grade, she found solace in a 12th grader named Daniel Wong who she began dating. However, he was forced to transfer to a new school and police found a pound of marijuana in his car. This is when her grades began to slide from A's to B's, but she was still accepted into early admission until she failed calculus her senior year and the college withdrew their offer. Pan started forging her report cards and claimed to still be starting university in the fall. She lied to her father about her transfer status and claimed that she even got $3,000 in his scholarship. He was so proud of his daughter that he bought her a laptop. In the fall, Pan commuted to cafes or Wong's dorm pretending to go to class. She even claimed to have successfully transferred to the University of Toronto in 2006 right on schedule. In 2008, as graduation loomed closer, she told her parents that she was only given one ticket and had to give it to her friend as to not exclude one of her parents. She was now supposedly a newfound graduate and told her parents that she was volunteering at a hospital in Toronto. Her parents grew suspicious due to the lack of uniform or ID badge. They decided to follow her to work one day and she was finally exposed. She had her phone and laptop confiscated and was forbidden from dating Wong. Over the next 2 years, she worked hard and regained her parents' trust, having her phone privileges restored. She was now 24 years old. She had never been drunk or gone out dancing. However, Daniel Wong and Jennifer reconnected. This is when he provided her with a spare phone, the same one she used to ask him to help her stage a robbery to kill her parents. Wong introduced her to an underworld friend named Lenford Crawford. After exchanging a series of texts, Pan agreed to pay Crawford $10,000 out of her eventual inheritance to take her parents out. He prepared to scope out her neighborhood on Halloween 2010. Kids in costumes streaming up and down the street provided the perfect cover. A week later, on November 8th, he texted Pan after work, "Okay, will be game time." Pan's father was asleep in bed and her mother was downstairs reading. Her younger brother was studying engineering at McMaster University and thankfully wasn't home. She said goodnight to her mother and unlocked the front door before going upstairs. At 10:02 p.m., she turned on the lights in the upstairs study. 3 minutes later, Crawford and 2 others entered the home. Imagine having parents so strict that you decide to hire a hitman to take them out. Jennifer Pan asked her boyfriend Daniel Wong to help her stage a robbery to kill her parents. With the help of 3 others, the plan was set in motion and the men entered the house around 10 p.m. on November 8th, 2010. They were all carrying guns and one pointed at Jennifer's mother while another ran upstairs, pointing the gun at her father's face and directed him out of bed, down the stairs into the living room. Upstairs, Jennifer was confronted outside of her bedroom. According to her, he tied her arms behind her using a shoelace and directed her back inside where she handed him over $2,500 in cash, then to her parents' room where he located another $1,100 in her mother's nightstand, finally leading her to the kitchen for her mother's wallet. Her parents were talking to each other in Cantonese, wondering how the men got inside their house. The men asked them where the money was. After her father said he only had $60 in his wallet, the men called him a liar and pistol whipped him in the back of the head. Pan's mother started crying and pleading with them not to hurt their daughter. They replied not to worry and that they wouldn't. 2 of the men took Pan's parents to the basement, wrapped their heads in blankets and shot them. Pan's father was shot in the shoulder and then the head and slumped over. Her mother was shot 3 times in the head and died instantly. Pan somehow managed to reach her phone and dial 911, crying for help on the phone. However, the unexpected happens while she's on the call. Her father gains consciousness, covered in blood with his dead wife's body next to him, and crawled upstairs to the main floor. He can be heard in the background moaning. Pan yells down that she's calling 911. Her father stumbled outside, screaming wildly, and encountered his startled neighbor who was about to leave for work in the driveway next door. The neighbor also called 911. Minutes later, police arrived and Han was rushed to the nearby hospital and then airlifted to Sunnybrook. Jennifer Pan was interviewed at 3 in the morning and she told him the story that she had come up with. The more they interviewed her, the more holes began popping up in her story. If it was a home invasion, why were the keys to the Lexus untouched? And how did they get in so easily? Eventually, they got Pan to admit that she was part of the crime. She later tried to convince the jury that she ordered the hit but changed her mind and wanted nothing to do with it, but they found her guilty of first-degree murder. She received 2 life sentences with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The men who helped her got the same sentence. Her remaining family, including her father and brother, cut off all contact with her and both suffer from depression.
All right, waiting for my kids' class to start. I have a story time for you guys. You won't believe this one. So we had a big bridal party come in to place their orders last year for their dresses. And everyone was so unfocused that, it was hard to actually direct this bridal party because I needed some guidance as to how to help them. So I asked the bride, is there anything specific that you like these girls to have on? Do you want a certain fabric, color, style? How can I help you, right? And one of the bridesmaids, who really was a no-nonsense type of girl, she goes, do you want me to help you? To the bride. And the bride's like, yeah, just tell him I want pink. So I pulled out the color palettes, we picked a color, and I showed the bride, I go, do you like this color, this color? She pointed to a color and that was it. And then this one bridesmaid, let's call her Jane. Jane decided to say, okay, I think a nice chiffon would be nice. The wedding's in Mexico. Let's do this, right? And so she kind of helped the girls find dresses for this bridal party. And from that point forward, Jane was the official contact person for everything, it turns out. So all of a sudden, all the text messages were coming to this young girl who is basically running this show, who is coordinating this entire wedding for this bride. So when the dresses came in, I called the bride numerous amounts of times. Now, mind you, Jane was the contact person from the very beginning. Since that day, I have not seen or heard from the bride. Jane made sure all the dresses were ordered. She made sure to get the girls in that did not place the orders. She made sure to coordinate with those that needed to get their measurements in from out of town. Jane was my contact person, not the bride. So, of course, when the dresses came in, I first called the bride, who never called me back, not once. I called Jane. Jane immediately got me answers. Immediately, the girls started picking up their dresses. That was a couple months ago that the dresses came in. In the meantime, a few parties happened. There was a shower. There was all kinds of fun stuff that took place. But Jane started to feel upset and pressure. And she came to me. She goes, Kathy, can I talk to you about something? What would you do in this situation? Now, mind you, Jane is probably like 23, 24 years old. College student, working part-time. Jane's not a typical college student, though. She doesn't go out and party. She does not drink. She is not an alcohol drinker. There's no reason, and she doesn't have to have a reason. I'm going to throw that out there because that's very important. She just does not drink alcohol, and this has become a problem for her in this bridal party. Well, their bachelorette party is about to happen, and Jane called me, and she goes, Kathy, I have this issue because they already don't want me to go to the bachelorette party because I don't drink alcohol. And she showed me all these texts and emails, and it blew my mind because they're basically shunning her because she doesn't drink. The last text message that she got from the bride was, if you're not going to drink with us, then you're not welcome in our bridal party. Jane planned this entire wedding for this bride. In the meantime, I received a call from the bride. Now, mind you, I haven't talked to the bride in ages. I have talked to bridesmaids and Jane. And the bride is asking me for Jane's dress. Jane paid for her dress. So this bride called me asking me for Jane's dress. Now, mind you, Jane's dress is paid for by Jane. Nobody else. It was Jane's credit card that was used. And Jane has her dress already in alterations because this wedding is in May and she's not messing around. She's part of this bridal party. She took the responsibility and she's doing everything she could in order to make sure she's on top of things so this bride does not have to worry about her. Now, mind you, this bride has not once talked to me since the day that they came in back in September. However, this bride feels that she's entitled to this dress and she's screaming at me, what do you mean her dress is in alterations? That's not her dress. It's for my wedding. I said, with all due respect, it's for your wedding, but each individual person that buys her own dress is the owner of that dress. Had you purchased the gowns, Miss Bride, then I would give you the dresses and you would distribute them as you so please. But it wasn't your credit card that was used, unfortunately. I'm sorry to tell you. It was the bridesmaid individually that purchased her dress. Therefore, she is the rightful owner of the dress, and she has the right to cut that dress in half if she wants. But at this point, I owe nothing to you, unfortunately, Miss Bride. I owe it to Jane, and Jane's in alteration stages already. What is the problem? What's going on? I know what the problem is, but I'm asking her. Maybe she'll give me some information, and I'll help her understand, because I do in some way feel some responsibility to help these people because they don't do this on a regular basis. And I want her to, maybe see the light and understand that what she's doing is not right. But then again, I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to get this involved, but I've been involved because they showed me the damn text. So I'm put between a rock and a hard place now, right? But I had said enough to this bride to piss her off because now she's like, I can't believe that you let this bridesmaid do her alterations already. I don't understand this bride's logic. And this is my problem because this is where she goes from this point. She says, well, I'm going to slander your name across the internet because how could you do this to a bride? This is my wedding. This is all happening over the phone, mind you. I said, with all due respect, it's your wedding, but each bridesmaid owns their dress. So if all of your bridesmaids decide to not come to your wedding and not drink alcohol at your wedding, they can do that. She stopped in her tracks and said nothing. She hung up the phone on me. That's where it ended at that point. This bride wanted to replace her bridesmaid that didn't want to drink alcohol because of a personal choice. To make a long story short, all the bridesmaids that purchased their dresses started doing alterations, not just Jane. In the meantime, after that conversation with that bride, this was like 3 weeks ago that this happened, the wedding's been called off. So they were doing all their parties and stuff and planning all the parties, but there really was no wedding to go to. And that's that. Poor Jane and the rest of the party are left with dresses that are in alteration stages and no wedding to be had, unfortunately. So Jane and the rest of the bridesmaids all came in to pick up their dresses from alterations, but no one was going to give me the scoop on what happened and why the wedding has been canceled. No one's really even saying anything, but Jane saw our videos and Jane knows the situation. Jane's been very open with me, and Jane told me what happened with this wedding and why it's been canceled. So this entire time, Jane's been planning this pretty much this entire wedding. The only thing that she wasn't involved in is tastings. So you can understand why the groom got a little bit concerned as to why the wedding planning process was left to to a bridesmaid that really was just a friend and not family or anyone very close to the bride. She was more so the friend of the groom. And the actual bachelorette party was taken upon the bride herself and the rest of the bridesmaids. They were really set on planning this bachelorette party, but no one was really set on planning the wedding. So the groom took offense to this. So we talked to some of the groomsmen. Now, some of these groomsmen are actual partners of the bridesmaids. So either they're engaged, dating, or actually married. Jane is the only person that's single, but she's also openly lesbian, so she didn't have a partner. So what she was going to do, she was going to walk down the aisle with the best man and another bridesmaid, because there was more bridesmaids than groomsmen. Jane, once again, was the groom's friend from college, so they've been best friends since. So he wanted to make her like a best man, but he didn't want to give her that title. So she's a maid of honor, but working on the groom's side. It makes sense to me, and quite frankly, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody because that's what the bride and groom wanted. But remember, they kept saying that Jane doesn't drink and Jane's the party pooper in the situation. Right, because Jane can probably document what's going on when she's sober. That's what I'm assuming, because here's what happened. So when the groom brought this to the attention of one of the groomsmen, he actually said, "That's funny that you say something because I found something fishy too." So apparently one of the bridesmaids' husbands found a fishy charge on their credit card, and that was for 2 plane tickets to Las Vegas the week of the bachelorette party. Now, he assumed that she had purchased it for him and for her because maybe they were planning on doing the bachelorette party and the bachelor party all in Vegas together. So when he brought this up to the groom's like, "That's actually a good idea. Let's propose that to the girls." And the girls lost their shit. They didn't want to have a bachelorette and the bachelor party all in the same place. They wanted them separate, do not even be in the same city that we're in. But that groomsman found it funny. Why did she buy 2 tickets? So he went to the security system in their house and found out that she actually did pay for another ticket, but it wasn't for one of the bridesmaids. It was for her boyfriend. Apparently, all the girls had some kind of a boyfriend or a little piece on the side. And they were all going to meet up in Vegas and have a big soiree. That's the bachelorette party. So needless to say, that's why the wedding was called off. Oh my God, there you go. And just as I suspected, they were worried that Jane would tell everybody what really happened. There you go, part 3.
Here's why you should never, and I repeat never, go on the hot tub boats in the River Thames in London. So me and my girlfriend, we booked it thinking it's going to be a nice romantic trip. I don't know what we thought was going to be romantic about sitting in a little boat going around a stinky stream of piss in the middle of Canary Wharf where everyone and their dogs are going to be watching you float around like idiots. Starts off all right until you start going down a little bit that has walkways either side and it's very thin. So everyone is literally within talking distance to you. And as you can imagine, everyone's staring, everyone's watching. There's not one person that walks past and doesn't go, "Oh, there's some dickheads in a hot tub." In fact, the majority of people actually shouted stuff at us. "Yeah, nice nipples, you mug. What's wrong with my nipples?" And you're probably thinking, "Oh, I can't get much worse than that," as I'm sat in this tub going around a honking river that looks like the colour of my shit. No, let me tell you, it can get worse. As these people have like a party, a little bash on their yacht, as little old us in the hot tub come cruising by this huge yacht, the person at the top looks over the edge and goes, guys, come here, look at this." I look up and I'm like, oh no. They start launching ice cubes at us. So now I'm sat in the River Thames in my swim shorts showing everyone my skinny fry body, just taking cover for these flying ice cubes. Like, what? This was meant to be like a romantic date and now it's World War II. I suppose the point of this video is maybe just go to a spa.
What's the most kind/beautiful thing you've overheard about yourself by accident? I was joking around with some acquaintances at a party and somebody got me with a really funny joke. I started giggling like a madman and I heard a girl on the other end of the room turn to my sister and say, "I just love his laugh, it's so happy." And she responded, "I know. That still makes me smile when I remember. Was home from college and my parents thought I was asleep. Heard them complimenting each other on how they did a good job raising me. This isn't my story, but it's my favorite. My college professor researched Egyptian mummified cats. He was back at the British Museum looking at some cats and they had a staff shift while he was still in there. He started talking to the new guy on his way out and the guy says, "If you're interested in mummified cats, you should talk to Professor's name. He's the world's expert in mummified cats." My professor was speechless for a moment and then said, "I'm Professor's name." And that's how he learned he was the world's expert. I had a girl over, first time dating in years, and my roommate, female, super close friend, was there as well. Heard my roommate say, "I know he's shy and a little awkward at first but give it a shot. He's super sweet and really funny once he's comfortable. He's worth the effort." Gave me a huge much needed confidence boost. My old band was due to play in a bar. I was stood ordering a drink and I overheard two people discussing the band. Apparently they'd heard the guitarist. Me. Was amazing. At a party I overheard my SO bragging to the others about my pasta and my cooking in general, like they should be jealous he gets to eat my food regularly. It made me happy. I know he likes my cooking, but him telling others about it when I'm not in the room was a big confidence boost.
So I just spent a year in a situationship. Just called it off today, but I need to share something because it's so absurd. So we've been seeing each other for over a year now, and the first few times that we hung out, he told me that he was up for anything, and I said that I was up for anything too, right? So you would think relationship is on the table. So that was a lie. That was just misleading me. So when I tried to turn things into a relationship about 3-4 months in, so what he tells me when I try to turn things into a relationship is he doesn't think we should date because I was planning to have top surgery at the time, and he was like, oh, I just don't think my family is going to accept you, and I don't want to have to put you through that. So a year later, I tell him hey, I'm not planning on this anymore. I think that we should really give this a chance because we've been seeing each other for a year. As it turns out, that's not something he ever even cared about. This man just chose to be transphobic rather than saying he didn't want a relationship. Why string me along like that?
Am I the bad guy for refusing to return a tip and telling a couple that I don't have time to play mediator? I'm a 22-year-old female waitress at Texas Roadhouse. This is one of my jobs to put myself through college. Most days are fine, but other days are a living hell. Yesterday, I was assigned a table that had a husband, wife, and what appeared to be a teenage daughter, maybe 17. Everything was going smooth at first, and the wife ordered a margarita. The husband then tried ordering a beer. The wife instantly lost her noodles and said, no, he will not have a beer. He will have a water. She then turned to him and said something along the lines of him not needing to drink because he was driving. He said no, the daughter could drive. It was childish. Anyways, he keeps telling me he wants a beer. She keeps telling me no. In this industry, situations like this are a lose or lose for waitresses. If I get him the beer, wife won't tip. If I don't get him the beer, he won't tip. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. So while they were arguing at me, I said, listen, I really don't have time to play mediator here. They went silent. I went and got both of them their alcohol. Daughter gives me an apologetic look upon my return, presumably because her mother was acting batshit crazy upon seeing me bring a beer in tow. Flash forward to after their meals. Husband has had 2 beers at this point. Wife has stopped drinking and glares at me every time I return. Wife and daughter go to the car while husband pays. Husband drops me a $40 tip on a $68 tab. I told him I couldn't accept it. He insisted. Eventually, I pocketed it. Wife comes in an hour or so later demanding that I give her the $40 her husband gave me, stating that I was a terrible host and went against her and I didn't deserve a tip. She got my manager involved who said she is not obligated to give you her tip. You left the restaurant and the tip has already been processed. Have a nice night. She was fuming, screaming at me about how much of an I was for supplying her husband alcohol after she said no. Other guests started chiming in saying that she was being ignorant and that I was doing my job, which is to provide guests with what they want, and said that it wasn't my fault that she was a controlling wife. She storms out. Given the fact that I was put on the spot like that, I feel insanely guilty. Am I the bad guy?